I'm not the kind of guy who blows up at work. I'm the keep your head down, do your job, go home tired type. If you'd asked anyone on my team what word described me, they'd probably say reliable before they remembered my actual name. That's how guys like my manager, Craig, get away with people like me for so long. I work in a big box warehouse store. Concrete floors, blinking fluorescent lights, steel racks that go up so high you stop looking after the third shelf. My day is pallets, barcodes, and trying not to get crushed by a runaway pallet jack. It's not glamorous, but it pays the rent and keeps my hands busy. Craig came with the store. I got hired in as associate. He was already assistant manager of operations. On paper, that means scheduling, safety checks, team leadership. In reality, it meant he barked orders from the front of the pallet stack and took credit whenever anything went well. He has that fake upbeat manager tone they all learn from the same YouTube seminar. When corporate walks through, he's patting people on the back, calling everyone buddy, asking about our weekends like he remembers we have lives. The second they leave, his voice drops an octave, and every sentence starts with, "Why is this still not done?" I became his favorite target because I never talked back. If someone called in sick, I picked up the shift. If a truck arrived late, I stayed 2 hours past close to unload it. If a customer needed something from the top rack, I was the one climbing into the cage. Quiet guys make good dumping grounds. Little stuff built up. He'd make jokes about me being slow if I stopped to double-check a label. He'd tease me in front of customers. Don't worry, he looks confused, but he knows what he's doing. I'd feel my ears burn, mutter, "Yes, sir," and keep moving boxes. Then the safety shortcuts started. We have rules about lifting, harnesses, blocking off aisles during heavy work, on the posters at least. Craig liked to remind us that metrics and labor hours mattered more than posters. "Just climb up and grab it," he'd say when I pointed out that we were supposed to use the order picker. "I don't have 10 minutes to wait for you to feel safe." I watched him talk a 16-year-old seasonal hire into stepping on a second shelf beam to reach a case of oil. The kid's shoe slipped. He caught himself on the rack, laughed because Craig was laughing. My stomach dropped. I went home that night and could still see his leg dangling in that empty space. I should have said something then. I didn't. I told myself it wasn't my job to fix managers. The day with the clipboard was a Tuesday, end of month, truck day. We were already behind. 2 guys called out, one with a sick kid, one with car trouble that we all knew meant he'd had enough for the week. So it was me, a new guy who still turned labels the wrong way, and Craig pacing the loading dock like a drill sergeant. The truck backed in late, brakes hissing, driver in a mood. We cracked the door, and it was stacked floor to ceiling, half of it mixed pallets that someone in another state had built like Tetris on drugs. Craig cursed under his breath about incompetent morons, and then looked at me like it was somehow my fault Ohio couldn't wrap a pallet. "You're on manifests," he snapped, tossing the clipboard at my chest. "I want this truck turned in under 45 minutes. 45? I blinked. "There's no way we're doing this in under an hour and a half with 3 people. He took a step closer. "Did I ask for your opinion or your hands?" So I shut up and started. Scan, check, mark, shout out locations. The dock filled with that rhythmic chaos that happens when you're half working, half trying not to die. The forklift beeped. The pallet jack squeaked. The new guy kept asking, "Is this C12 or C21?" And I kept fixing his mistakes mid-step. About 30 minutes in, I noticed something wrong. One of the pallets was labeled for another store. Completely different store number. If we checked it in and moved it, inventory would be screwed for both places. "Hey, Craig," I called over the noise. "This pallet's tagged for store 174. We're 178. Do you want to flag it, or—" He was already aggravated. Red in the face, sweat on his forehead. Doing that thing where he holds frustration in his jaw, like he's chewing on it. He marched over, snatched the clipboard out of my hand, squinted at the label. "It's fine," he said. "Mark it received." "It's not ours," I said, keeping my voice level. "If they audit this—" He cut me off with a sharp laugh that didn't sound amused. "Oh my God, Grant, do you want to do my job too? Is that it? You want the manager badge now? The new guy froze with a pallet halfway off the truck. The driver pretended to check his phone. I felt that familiar heat creeping up my neck. I'm just saying it's not our store number, I repeated. We're supposed to report missed shipments. That's what the policy. That's when it happened. He didn't wind up like in a movie. There was no dramatic slow motion. He just lifted the clipboard in his hand and smacked it into my shoulder, hard like you'd slap a stubborn vending machine. Plastic met bone with a crack that echoed off the concrete. The force jolted me half a step back. Papers fluttered. My arm went numb from the impact, a sharp sting spreading up into my neck. Everything stopped. The forklift's beep clicked off. The new guy's pallet sat suspended. The driver's eyes flicked up. They all saw it. There was no world where they didn't see it. Craig's face changed in that instant, not to guilt, to annoyance that he'd let the mask slip in public. "Don't argue with me," he snapped, as if we'd just been in a normal conversation. "Mark, it received." I stared at him, my hand on the spot where he'd hit me. It wasn't the worst pain I'd ever felt. I've had boxes fall on me, wrenched my back, cut my palms on broken packaging. It wasn't about that. It was the fact that my manager had just hit me with a clipboard in front of my coworkers like I was a misbehaving kid, and then expected me to keep working. My first instinct was the one I'd trained into myself. Swallow it. Make a joke. Tell him not to worry about it. Go home angry, complain in the shower, come back tomorrow like nothing happened. But something in me didn't move this time. It just shifted. I looked past him up at the corner of the dock where the black half-dome of the security camera sat. Little red light, blinking, always watching. I thought about the training videos they make us watch about zero tolerance for workplace violence. I thought about the laminated poster in the break room with the hotline number no one ever uses. Then I looked back at Craig. Every word I'd swallowed in the last 2 years lined up behind my teeth all at once. He must have seen something in my face, because his eyes narrowed, just a flicker. Not fear yet, just calculation. I bent down, picked up the clipboard from the floor, and handed it back to him. My hand didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. "Okay," I said quietly. "If we're doing it this way, we're doing it by the book." I pulled my phone out of my pocket and woke the screen with my thumb. Craig watched me, irritation starting to mix with that first hint of unease. Like he'd just remembered those cameras were real, and so were the policies he'd been treating like decoration. "Grant, get back to work," he said, that sharp edge creeping in. "We don't have time for your—" I met his eyes and cut him off just once in my life. "We're going to make time," I told him, "because you just turned this into a reportable incident." The air in the loading dock didn't just go quiet. It collapsed. You could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. You could hear the forklift's cooling fan ticking as it wound down. The new guy was frozen with his hands still on the pallet, like he was afraid any movement would be considered participation. Craig stiffened. He'd expected me to flinch, to apologize, to do anything except stand there with a phone in my hand and a sentence he couldn't control hanging in the air. "Grant," he said, voice low, "put the phone away." I didn't. I tapped the home icon and scrolled to the company's ethics hotline, the number we all saw on break room posters and joked about, the one that said anonymous, zero tolerance, immediate escalation for safety and harassment concerns. I hit call, right there, in front of the camera, in front of him. Craig's face drained a full shade. He took a half step forward. "Don't do this out here. Come to the office." "No," I said, holding the phone to my ear. "The office isn't covered by cameras." That was the first moment he truly panicked. His jaw clenched. His eyes darted to the camera, then the driver, then the 2 employees on the dock leaning in to listen. I didn't look at any of them. I kept my eyes on Craig and my voice steady. The hotline picked up. "This is the Workplace Ethics and Safety line. Are you reporting an incident?" "Yes," I said clearly. "I need to report physical contact from a manager." Craig hissed under his breath. "Grant, enough. End the call." I didn't even glance at him. My manager struck me with a clipboard during a shift. Time of incident is 6:42 p.m. Location, receiving dock. Multiple witnesses present. Camera ID RC04 overhead has full view. I'm safe, but I want this documented. The driver mouthed, "Holy shit." The new guy looked like he'd just learned Santa Claus wasn't real, and neither was job security. Craig stepped closer again, not touching me. He wasn't that stupid, but close enough that I could feel the heat of his anger like a furnace. "We can talk about this," he muttered. "Don't involve corporate." But the thing was, corporate was already involved. The moment I said physical contact, the hotline worker's tone shifted into protocol mode. They started asking for details, location, names, whether medical care was needed, if I felt unsafe. Craig kept interjecting. "It was an accident. There was no contact. You're twisting this." But every word he said only made the witnesses silently commit this moment to memory. When I finished answering the operator's questions, they thanked me, gave me a case number, and said someone from HR would follow up within 24 hours. I hung up. Craig exploded. Not loudly, not violently, just in that desperate, quiet, frantic way people do when the consequences finally catch up. "We're going to the office. Right now." "For what?" I asked, still calm. "There's nothing we can discuss that isn't already recorded." "You think this is going to go the way you want?" he barked. "You think HR cares? They're going to tell you this was a misunderstanding. They're going to tell you to drop it." He was trying to convince himself more than me. The new guy finally found his voice. I saw it," he whispered. "He definitely hit you." Craig's head snapped toward him. "You stay out of—" "No," I cut in, stepping slightly between them. "He's not your problem. I am." For a second, Craig didn't speak. He just stared at me like I'd changed species. Maybe, in a way, I had. HR called the next morning. Not corporate, just our local HR rep. The same one who once spent an entire meeting explaining why we should smile more on the floor. She sounded concerned, the way people sound concerned when they're reading from a script. "Hi, Grant. We received a report from you last night. We'd like to get your side of the story." "My side?" I said. "It's on camera. And there were witnesses." "Well, sometimes angles can be misleading," she said lightly. "We'll review footage, of course, but for now, can you walk me through what happened?" I walked her through it. Every detail, every word, every step. She hummed sympathetically and wrote everything down. At least it sounded like writing. Then she said something that told me exactly how this was going to go. "We really value stability in our management team. You understand that, right?" There it was. The quiet message. Don't shake the tree. Don't make noise. Don't inconvenience the people who matter more than you. "I understand," I said, "but a manager hitting an employee is a zero-tolerance violation." "Well," she said, her voice tightening, "sometimes things are open to interpretation." Interpretation. I thanked her for the call and hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. For a solid minute, I just sat in my car outside the store, hands on the wheel, heart thudding slowly and evenly, like it was getting used to a new rhythm. Because I knew something important. They weren't going to protect me. They were going to protect Craig. People like him always had systems built around them. People like me always got buried under misunderstandings. I felt something cold settle into place inside me. Not anger, not fear. Resolve. That night, after my shift, I opened my notes app and started typing. Dates, times, incidents, names, safety violations, threats, scheduling retaliation, unpaid breaks, the works. Pages and pages. Then I did something even Craig didn't see coming. I booked a free consultation with a labor attorney. He listened to my story. He asked about cameras. He asked about safety protocols. He asked if I had witnesses. When I finished, he leaned back, crossed his arms, and gave me a sentence that tattooed itself into my brain. "If what you're telling me is true and captured on video, your manager isn't your problem. He's the company's problem. And they know it." I walked out of that office with my heart beating hard and steady, like it knew something big had just been set in motion. And I didn't know it yet, but that decision, that calm, quiet decision, was the one thing Craig should have been afraid of from the start. HR summoned me 2 days later, not to the small office near the break room, the one where they give you a branded pen and talk about team culture. No, they asked me to come to the conference room. That alone told me the situation was already bigger than Craig wanted to believe. When I walked in, the HR rep sat stiffly at the table with a folder in front of her. Beside her was someone new, a man in a collared shirt with a badge that said Regional Operations. Craig wasn't there. We'd like to clarify a few details, the HR rep said, eyes too bright. Just routine follow-up. The regional manager leaned forward. You filed a safety incident involving physical contact from a supervisor? Yes. We reviewed the footage. I waited. He cleared his throat. It's consistent with your description. That was the first small fracture, but then HR jumped in. However, it's possible this was simply a reflexive motion, an accident, a moment of frustration, not assault. We want to ensure we don't escalate something unnecessarily. There it was, the script again. They wanted this contained, not resolved. I've already consulted legal counsel, I said. Both of them froze for half a second. It was tiny, but unmistakable. We really don't think that's necessary, HR said quickly. We can handle this internally. I'm sure you can, I said. But internal handling doesn't erase camera footage, witness statements, or OSHA guidelines on workplace violence. Silence. Even the regional guy blinked. The room shifted right then, not physically, but in control, and they all felt it. By the afternoon, I noticed Craig behaving strangely. One moment he was overly friendly, clapping people on the shoulders, offering to help out on the floor. The next, he was pacing behind the aisles like a cornered animal. He made several attempts to get me alone. Once near the electrical closet. Grant, let's just talk like adults, okay? Once by the compactor. Look, I didn't hit you. I tapped you. You're blowing this up. Once at closing. You know I could lose my job over this. You don't want that. You're not that kind of person. He wasn't pleading for fairness. He was pleading for silence. I didn't give him either. I won't discuss this outside HR, I repeated each time. Any communication should go through them. That line hit him harder than the hotline call. Craig wasn't used to being shut out. He was used to cornering people until they folded. Now he couldn't get me behind a door, couldn't twist my words, couldn't bully me into dropping it. I saw his confidence crack, slowly, then all at once. Mini catharsis. For the first time, he was the one avoiding cameras. By the end of the week, rumors spread through the store like smoke under a door. Craig's in trouble. There's an investigation. Corporate flew someone in. They pulled footage from 3 months back. People I barely knew came up to me quietly. Hey man, if they ask, I'll say what I saw. You're not crazy. He's pushed all of us. He once threw a scanner at me during Christmas rush. He made me lift an 80-pound box by myself. The part that hit hardest was a former employee who messaged me on social media. He did the same thing to me last year. Nobody believed me. A bully is never a one-time event. They're a pattern, and Craig's pattern was finally unraveling. The next Tuesday, something snapped in the store's atmosphere. You could feel it in the air, tension like weather before a storm. Around noon, a sleek black sedan pulled into the front lot. Out stepped another corporate guy, suit jacket, tablet in hand. He walked straight inside. 15 minutes later, the PA system clicked on. Craig, please report to the conference room. It wasn't the usual tone. It sounded final. He went in. He didn't come out. We kept working, but everyone was listening. Every time the conference room door clicked, heads turned. The new guy looked like he was about to pass out. The forklift driver actually parked his machine and pretended to reorganize labels so he could stay nearby. After nearly an hour, the door opened. Craig emerged. His face was pale, blotchy and tight like he was holding his breath through a panic attack. He wasn't carrying his tablet. His badge was clipped onto his pocket instead of his collar. His hands were shaking. Behind him, the regional manager followed, expression blank. Craig walked across the floor in small, stiff steps, heading toward the exit. He passed me without looking up, which was new. Craig always looked down on everyone. This time he couldn't. Someone whispered, "Is he fired?" Someone else whispered, "They made him box up his office." Craig reached the front doors, pushed them open, and disappeared into daylight. Just like that, 8 years of bluster, intimidation, and ego gone in a walk of shame. The store breathed for the first time in months. 10 minutes later, the regional manager came back onto the floor. He approached me with a caution you normally reserve for wild animals or lawsuits. "Grant," he said, "we've concluded the investigation. HR will be in touch with next steps, but I want to personally say that you handled yourself professionally." Professionally? That was corporate speak for. You didn't scream, you didn't threaten, you didn't punch him back, and thank God for that, because it saved us money. He cleared his throat. "Expect a call from higher up this week." Higher up. That was never about scheduling. That was about liability. The moment he walked away, the new guy whispered, "Dude, you just ended a manager." I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I didn't feel triumphant. What I felt was something colder, cleaner, like the moment after a storm when the air finally stops pressing on your skin. But that was just the beginning, because removing Craig was one thing. Dealing with the company he hid behind, that was a whole different fight. HR didn't call me. Corporate did. A woman from the Employee Relations Division, the level above local HR, the level they bring in when someone says the words legal counsel, asked me to join a video meeting the next morning. She was calm, measured, and nothing like the HR rep who kept trying to smooth things over. "Grant, thank you for your patience throughout this process," she began. "We've completed a full review of the incident and extended investigation." Extended. That meant they dug deeper than the clipboard. "We've verified multiple safety violations, misconduct, and prior complaints against your former manager. His employment has been terminated effective immediately." Former manager. Hearing it said out loud felt like a door clicking shut. "And regarding your situation," she continued, "we want to ensure you feel supported and safe moving forward." Then she outlined the offers. Back pay for the overtime Craig forgot to approve. Paid medical evaluation even though I told them the clipboard hadn't done real damage. "Standard protocol," she said. A transfer to a different store with a new manager and a bump in pay. 2 weeks paid leave before the transfer date to decompress. Corporate never uses words like decompress unless they're afraid of the alternative. They didn't say the word settlement. They didn't have to. I signed the paperwork, not because I wanted revenge, but because it gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. The new store looked identical on the outside. Same logo, same carts, same endless aisles. But the atmosphere was different the moment I walked in. The manager there, a woman named Linda, met me with a firm handshake. "Your file says you're reliable," she said. "Around here, that means something. Stick to the rules. Keep communication clear, and you and I won't have problems." Simple, direct, respectful. I realized I'd forgotten what that felt like. My first week, I watched a new hire make a mistake unloading a pallet. Instead of snapping, Linda corrected him. "That's unsafe. Stop. Let me show you the right way. We don't cut corners here." He nodded. She explained. He fixed it. No humiliation, no yelling, no fear. And it hit me like a quiet punch to the chest that I had been living under a man who treated disrespect as a management style. I thought that was normal. It wasn't. It never should have been. Back at my old store, rumors trickled through the grapevine. Craig tried to apply for a manager position at another branch. They turned him away. His termination code followed him everywhere. Some said he blamed me for ruining his career. Some said he was trying to tell people it was just a misunderstanding. Some said he stopped showing up to places he used to brag in because the embarrassment was too loud to ignore. I didn't care. For once, his mess wasn't mine to carry. One Saturday morning, in my second week at the new store, I was stocking shelves in aisle 9 when one of the older employees, a quiet man named Bruce, said, "You're fitting in good here." I shrugged, trying to. "Good," he said. "You've got a calm way about you? We need more of that." Calm. Funny word considering everything that led me here. I didn't correct him. Calm was fine. Calm was earned. Later, on my lunch break, I sat outside behind the store, watching the delivery trucks pull in and out, the hum of normal life replacing the chaos I used to breathe in every day. And for the first time in a long time, I felt okay. Not triumphant, not vindictive, just okay. A clean kind of peace, the kind that doesn't come from winning, the kind that comes from finally stepping out of a place that was shrinking you. People like to imagine justice as something loud. Slamming doors, screamed arguments, dramatic exits. Mine wasn't loud. It was a clipboard hitting my shoulder. A phone call made in a calm voice. A case number written down by someone I'll never meet. A manager realizing too late that he'd finally hit the wrong employee on the wrong day in full view of the wrong camera. Craig thought hitting me would shut me up. Instead, it uncovered everything he'd been hiding behind. I didn't get him back. I didn't have to. I just stopped letting him be the kind of person who could get away with it. And in the end, that was more than enough. I clock in now with no tightness in my chest, no waiting for footsteps behind me, no bracing for a voice raised too close, just work, quiet, routine, a life that finally feels like mine again. And if I ever hear another manager snap a clipboard in their hand like a threat, I'll remember the day a bully tried to make me smaller and ended up breaking his own career instead.